Isaiah 38, and on the program yesterday I left off at verse number 11. I said, I shall not see the Lord, even the Lord, in the land of the living. I shall behold man no more with the inhabitants of the world. Mine age is departed, and is removed from me as a shepherd's tent. I have cut off like a weaver my life. He will cut me off with panning sickness. From the day even to night wilt thou make an end of me. Now, yesterday I ran out of time at the end of the broadcast. We've gotten down to where Hezekiah testifying concerning his death. And this, of course, is not dealt with in 2 Kings 20. This is added light and added material that is given to us through the inspired pen of the prophet Isaiah. I said, I shall not see the Lord, even the Lord. Now, wait just a minute. Keep this in the light of its context. There's no question that Hezekiah had seen the Lord and had seen the hand of God in his life. Hezekiah is regarded as one of the good and godly kings of the two southern tribes of Judah, and among the pinnacle of the kings that did that which was right. Asa, David, Hezekiah, these men are regarded in Hebrew history as good and godly kings. So he said, I shall not see the Lord, even the Lord. And it's obvious that he knew the Lord, but notice the context. In the land of the living. And I mentioned on yesterday that my grandfather died back in 1995, Dr. Harold B. Seitler, who began the Bright Spot Hour. And that has been, now my grandfather has been gone for soon be 28 years. For 28 years, the Bright Spot Hour has moved right on. The printing work, I've kept my granddad's material in print. I have been able to write about 7 books myself. We are currently bringing back into print a number of large commentaries that had gone out of print recently. And the Bright Spot Hour continues right on today. I mean, we're on 38 radio stations across the land today. God has maintained the door and kept the door open. And I think that the Bible exposition that you get on the Bright Spot Hour is as good as any broadcast today as far as expository work is concerned. And we've stayed, the Bright Spot Hour sounds today like it sounded when my grandfather was alive. We continue to use the King James Bible. I do that by conviction. I believe the King James Bible is without error. And there's no need to make any correction in the King James. I think the King James text is an infallible text. But having said all of that, how much my grandfather in heaven knows about what the Bright Spot Hour is doing today, or about your support for the radio and my continuing to labor in this ministry, I would assume that he knows. I would assume that he is aware, but how much, I don't know. If my grandfather were alive, my grandfather could see the hand of the Lord in the land of the living. But in the grave, and his soul and spirit is now with the Lord in heaven, Hezekiah says, I shall not see the Lord, even the Lord, in the land of the living. I want to be alive. I want to live as long as I can. And I want the Lord to spare my life and sustain my life so that I can see the hand of the Lord in my children's lives, see the hand of the Lord in my grandchildren's lives, so I can see the hand of the Lord in the local church that I'm a member of, so that I can see the hand of the Lord in my pastor and in his family. And I'm a member of the orchestra at Rock Springs, and I want to see the hand of the Lord in our orchestra, and see the hand of the Lord in the orchestra members' families. If I die, all of that ends. If I die, that comes to a close. I'll not be able to see the hand of the Lord in the land of the living. That's why I have a definite interest of remaining in the land of the living. I shall behold man no more with the inhabitants of the world. Now, there's a great company of believers and a great host of my family, just like a great host of your family that's with the Lord now in heaven. They have run their race, they have passed away, and they are with the Lord in the glory world, and we miss them day by day. We certainly sorrow, not as those that have no hope, but we certainly sorrow for our loved ones that have outstripped us, our loved ones that have gone on to be with the Lord. But our loved ones that are with the Lord, and I use the illustration of my grandfather and my dad and my Uncle Andy Carper. I loved my Uncle Andy Carper like a father. And these men are no longer with the inhabitants of the world. They're not here anymore. And I can't shake hands and visit with my Uncle Andy anymore right now. I mean, I'll have to pass away and go to meet the Lord and see them in heaven. They're not here. I can't fellowship with them now. And Hezekiah laments that. Hezekiah bemoans the fact that if I die, then I shall behold man no more with the inhabitants of the world. Then in verse 12, mine age is departed, and is removed from me as a shepherd's tent. I have cut off like a weaver my life. He will cut me off with pining sickness. From day even to night wilt thou make an end of me. Now again, this is a very interesting and I think a very illuminating statement that is made by Hezekiah in this passage. And in all the years of my preaching, and I've been in the ministry over 40 years, I have never attempted to expound on these verses in Isaiah chapter number 38, and I have never heard a preacher try to expound on these scriptures. He says, mine age is departed. Now, as long as you and I are alive, our age is advancing. I told someone the other day, the only alternative to getting old is dying young. And I don't like that alternative. I don't like the alternative of dying young, and I trust the Lord and pray that the Lord will allow me to get old. But mine age right now, while I'm alive, mine age is advancing. As I'm recording this broadcast, not today, which is the 20th day of December, but as I'm recording this broadcast, today is my birthday. And I rejoice in another milestone. I rejoice in another year of life. But I pray the Lord will allow me, if the rapture doesn't take place, to have 30 more birthdays. I would like that very much. And I would be very, very old and very elderly if God allowed that to take place. But as long as I'm alive and breathing, then my age is advancing. But as soon as I breathe my last breath, my age is departed. We go to the cemetery and walk by the tombstones, and on the tombstone of all the bodies that are there, the corpses that are there, buried or interred, you have a date of birth and a death date, and you have an age. You read the obituary, and the obituary says that John Doe, age, and then fill in the blank, 85 or 76 or 59, however old he was when he died. My dad was 62 when he died. My dad's dad was 88 when he died. And my dad's mother was 93 when she died. And all of them have a years of their life, the years that they lived. The distance from their birth to their death was their age when they died. Now, their age is departed. That's why I just quoted to you. My grandfather, Andy Carper, was 88 when he died, and my grandfather, Harold Sackler, was 81 when he died. Now, had both of my grandfathers lived, then their age would have continued advancing. Their age would have continued moving forward. But the moment they died, their age is departed and is removed from me as a shepherd's tent. Now, the unique thing about a shepherd's tent When a tent was set up in that day, and you remember we're dealing with now more of a Middle Eastern ancient world culture, and a tent could be set up, and a man could live in that tent for a rather long period of time. But the unique thing about a tent is there is no foundation. The tent is held up by cords and stakes and draperies providing the tent. There are no dug footers, and you can live in a tent for a year, 2 years, pull the stakes up out of the ground, move that tent, and in just a couple of rain showers and maybe a season or two, you would never ever know that a tent had ever been there. Now, if a house is built and a foundation is dug and footers are poured and the blocks and brick and mortar and other steel and things of that nature go into the ground, then 100 years you can come back and say there was a house that was here, and you can excavate those footers and you can find the footprint of that house. Archaeologists do that all the time. And historians and historic archaeologists and students of architecture and engineers do that all the time, and they can nearly replicate what houses look like back from the colonial era, because there are the remnants of those footers and foundations that were dug and put in the ground. But the matter of a tent, the tent is never in the ground. The tent is on the ground, but is never in the ground. And very quickly, the memory that there was ever a tent there very soon goes away. I'm astonished. I really am stunned at how quickly great men are forgotten after they die. I think about my grandfather, and one of the reasons that I run his voice and promote his memory. I'm not trying to be Harold Sightler, and I haven't made an icon or an idol out of Harold Sightler. But at the same time, it is within my capacity to not let his memory die. But I'm stunned at how, which I think is a relatively short amount of time, but then I know that I'm not a young man anymore myself. But I'm just stunned at how my grandfather has become a relic of history. He's become a relic of ecclesiastical history. You think about the great Ronald Reagan and how few people remember him now that he has passed away about a decade ago, and how swiftly the memory of these individuals disappear. Much like setting up a tent and having a tent on the ground, and when that shepherd's tent is removed, how quickly the memory of that fades away. Now I must stop now, but the Lord willing, on tomorrow I'll come back, and I hope that you'll hear the Bright Spot Hour at that time, and I'll continue dealing with Hezekiah's testimony concerning his imminent death.
You may write the Bright Spot Hour at Post Office Box 4, Greenville, South Carolina 29